Thanks to the awesome people in my comment section, we can finally review Battlemorph for the Atari Jaguar CD, and I could not be more excited. I had played it briefly a few months back for the first time, and was absolutely floored by the first impression the game gave me. And honestly, I wasn't expecting a whole lot more outside of what Cybermorph gave us, and I'm not sure why. Maybe because Cybermorph, despite its decent gameplay, was mostly an underwhelming experience. It featured odd enemy designs that didn't resemble much of anything, repetitive gameplay, and the same mission objective over and over again. So the question we're going to answer in this review is if Battlemorph simply makes a good first impression and then falls back into the pitfalls of the original, or if it's a solid experience through and through. So, let's find out. Battlemorph was developed by British studio Attention to Detail for the Atari Jaguar CD and was released back in 1995. The idea for a Cybermorph sequel was pitched to Atari shortly after the release of that game, and this way they could implement the ideas they came up with late into development and capitalize on what they had learned during the development of Cybermorph. And Battlemorph starts strong enough with a FMV intro and a Sean Connery sounding narrator that persists throughout the game. I really enjoy these FMV cutscenes, at least initially, but once you've seen them a few times, you can just easily skip over them and proceed to the missions. You also get FMVs for each launch of a mission, after each success or failure, after the completion of a planet cluster, and of course, there's an FMV ending. And it all looks really good and shows off the 3D capability of the Jaguar nicely. In Battlemorph, you pilot the War Griffin, and this time it can actually morph and change and move across various terrain. You can plunge into water, you can fly through tight corridors, and even enter what seems to be lava, or at least a mysterious red liquid that constantly drains your shields. It all makes for a nice variety and really shows off what I was hoping for from Cybermorph. You can even skip your ship across the top of water with this satisfying visual and sound effect. And if you ever played the original Cybermorph, then you'll be glad to know that you're no longer just collecting pods. This time you'll be destroying certain structures, recovering new weapons, taking down force fields, performing timed escapes, finding and shutting down power to various weapons and structures, and even detonating explosives and destroying entire planets. It's all actually very well done and can be fun and engaging. Things start out mostly straightforward, but there's a lot of game here, and eventually, well, things will get complicated, requiring several steps to be performed before your objective can be completed. The whole experience is very rewarding to play, and absolutely worth the time. It's a shame that more people won't be able to play Battlemorph either, because it controls very well. It's mostly similar to Cybermorph, with the C button slowing down your momentum and eventually throwing your ship into reverse, the B button firing your selected weapon, A moving you forward at increased speeds, and the option button engages a pretty detailed map for each world. You can use the number pad to select your weapons as you would expect, and you'll slowly acquire more as you play. You acquire them a little too slowly, honestly, as it takes a long time before you get options for your weapon slots. So plan on using the missiles and drones for a good long while. And even then, some of the new weapons feel, well, just a bit too situational to be useful. But it's all good. Your standard shot and missiles can handle most enemies, and the drones are more useful than you might think. They act as bullet sponges that take damage on your behalf, which is really nice, because Battlemorph can get pretty hard in the mid to late game. While I found most enemies in Cybermorph to be basic, the enemies here in Battlemorph are varied and require some skill and decent aim to take out. You have Phoenix-looking ships that shoot back at you, tracking missiles that will follow you and take aim, green blobs that will wrap around your ship and drain all your shields, and turrets and tanks that require missiles to take out quickly, or else they'll damage you a ton. I really enjoyed the combat this time around, and it was all thanks to the better variety of enemies and the vastly improved AI. The boss battles are night and day from Cybermorph. The bosses of the original game were just silly and, well, underwhelming if I'm honest. But in Battlemorph, they're pretty difficult and require some thought and strategy to defeat. Now, some of them are still pretty nonsensical at times, but the enemy bosses are fun, and that trumps everything else in my book. The first boss you fight, the Hornet, requires you to stay in a position behind it. You have to be ready to blow up its mines that it's dropping, and then avoid its front-facing artillery. The second boss is a large mech that sends out a ton of missiles that will wreck you quickly. But if you use your drones wisely, well, it should be a pretty doable battle. And there's so many more, such as a ship, a star, and even a few worms that you'll take on in later levels. The boss battles are definitely a vast improvement, much like the rest of the game. And as I said before, the FMV visuals look great, but the in-game graphics look solid too. Now the draw distance is still pretty abysmal if I'm honest, but it's improved a bit from Cybermorph. I never had the issues with mountains forming in front of my face before I could maneuver out of the way, even while moving quickly. And everything seems to run at a better frame rate too, with nice colors and decent details in some places. The game could almost pass as an early PS1 game, which is quite the compliment for a console that many people felt couldn't do 3D justice. The audio is vastly improved too, and let's start with the formerly green head in the room. Skylar is no longer green but blue, and she is far less annoying. That is, if you found her annoying to begin with, which I did not. She wishes you good luck, informs you when you complete objectives, when your shields are down, and when it's time to head back to the Sutherland, your base of operations. The music is really well done too, and manages to be nice and catchy in the menus, but atmospheric during gameplay. And as I mentioned, there's a Sean Connery-style voice actor that is just, mwah, chef's kiss. Absolutely perfect. I love it.
Mission completed. Welcome back. Planet Sanctine.
But there is one thing I have to say, and that's that this game gets really difficult. And the game is very long. Like, very, very long. Much longer than I'm sure most people would expect, which can be a good thing, especially since you can save your progress with the proper memory track. And you'll need it if you want to see the awesome FMV ending. But it's not going to be easy getting there, because the objectives require a lot of understanding of the gameplay, and the ability to search and understand the given hints. But the gameplay is great. The tunnels that you travel in puts you in first-person view, and dare I say that these are my favorite part of the game? You don't have to worry about pop-in in these sections, and you have full control of your aiming. These parts just look really good in my opinion, and they're a lot of fun to play. The underwater sections are nice for variety's sake, but they're definitely my least favorite. The water visuals and the filter that fills the screen can be, well, a little off-putting, and it can make navigation a chore. But it's still a welcome change of pace. But from about the third planet cluster on, the game is going to demand a high level of skill, and if you're using the save function, well, chances are you lost most of your continues up to that point, especially your first time playing through. So you might be seeing the failure FMV a few more times than you would like, but ultimately, it doesn't take away from the fun of the game, and there's an excellent guide over at Atari Age that is very much worth using if you get stuck. I'm not ashamed to say that I used it a time or two. And with that, well, I think I've covered all I can on Battlemorph. So I think it's time to package up our War Griffin and send it off from the Sutherland all the way to the enemy planet known as the pros and cons section to see if I can give Battlemorph a high score or not. And as always, we start by attacking the pros.
Enhanced scanning.
Battlemorph is vastly improved over the original, and there is a nice variety of gameplay scenarios. You move through tight corridors, underwater, and high in the sky. You also have a lot of different objectives, capped with really entertaining boss fights. And the game runs and looks really good. The colors are much improved, the frame rate is a bit higher, and the enemies, well, they actually look like enemies this time. The audio is excellent too, and I really like the voiceovers. The game is long, and it'll give you a lot of playtime for the money. The FMVs are a welcome addition to the package, and this game, well, it just feels like it could have been an early PS1/Saturn era game to me. But we have a few cons to hit before we're home free, and let's start with the draw distance. It's improved from Cybermorph, but still not great. And the game also gets really difficult and demands that you know what you're doing. And in my opinion, you acquire new weapons too slowly, and there really aren't enough useful ones. A few of the weapons you get just feel a bit too situational to me. But that's all the negatives I really have. So Battlemorph continued to be a pleasant surprise as I played it, and I have no hesitation in giving it 4 Jag controllers out of 5. It's solid, and everything you'd want from a Cybermorph sequel. It improves the game in just about every way possible. It's a shame that it was released so late in the console's life, and it's a shame that more people can't play it. Battlemorph is absolutely worth experiencing, and if you have a Jaguar CD, a game drive, or if you're able to emulate it, well then I recommend you give it a try. You just might be as pleasantly surprised as I was. But that's enough of what I think. Now I want to hear from all of you. Have you played Battlemorph before? Do you think it's as good as I said? Or if you never played it, do you think it looks good enough to give a try? Is there anything else you wish they had added or done to the game? And do you think Atari should try to acquire the game rights from Songbird and release it themselves so more people can play it? Let me know the answers to these questions and whatever else you want to say down in the comments below. And please, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It helps the channel a lot more than you could possibly know. And speaking of helping the channel, the Atari Network could really use your help. If you've been getting enjoyment from the channel, then please consider heading over to Patreon and subscribing at the $2 or $5 level. It helps the channel to grow and go strong. These following people did, and they're enjoying extra videos, audios, and more. So thank you to My Own Celestial, OG Hugo, Head Trauma Bob, Jolt 7800, Ball Gobbler, Socrates 63, Fence the Spook, Mr. Shua TV, Jeremiah Thomas, and Huge Ass 79. You guys rock. And also, don't forget to check out the Discord. Links in the description. Okay guys, I've been the 7800 Pro Gamer, a space pilot from the mothership known as the Atari Network, and I want to thank you for checking out my review of Battlemorph. And don't forget to stay classy, Atarians.